want to get back to the FCIC hearings, which are actually starting in about half an hour's time. With us right now is Douglas Holtz-Eakin. He is a member of the FCIC Commission, the panel, who's going to be questioning, of course, the former executives of Bear Stearns, and also Roddy Boyd still with us as well. And Doug, great to have you with us. And you heard already from advanced testimony that these guys are going to say, look, there was nothing we could do to prevent this collapse. How are you going to get behind those words?
Well, I think both with Bear Stearns and more generally with all of the investment banks, you have to ask about the business model. The leverage that they carried, what were the internal risk management practices. We know that there were reports both from the SEC and from Oliver Wyman that internal risk management wasn't as strong as it might have been. And you worry about their liquidity position because, they were overnight getting $75 billion in funding on a $400 billion in assets. So, the basic business model has to be really looked at very carefully.
And they were doing all of this, though, under regulators' noses.
They were, and we'll get to see the regulators as well. And, one has to ask about the sort of SEC's oversight, the supervision program known as the CSE. So that's fair game. I mean, the goal in these 2 days is not so much to understand Bear Stearns or GE Capital or the other witnesses, but to understand what happened with this set of practices that is referred to as shadow banking. Short-term funding for long-term investments went badly, badly wrong.
Roddy, could anything have actually prevented this shadow? I mean, could any type of regulation have prevented this?
I kick that around a lot. I wonder a lot if we had Glass-Steagall. I mean, prevented it? Perhaps no. It could have perhaps circumscribed the collapse. I often wonder about the Glass-Steagall, Act of 98, the repeal, I should say. This is the 34 Act. Boy, oh boy, you wonder if Bear Stearns hadn't felt the need to compete as aggressively with Citigroup, with UBS,
would they
particularly
have taken
UBS.
all those risks then?
Absolutely.
Well, and that's a good point because, Doug, I mean, are you finding that so far in your investigation on this panel?
Well, I think the amazing thing to me has been, if you listen to like the Citigroup executives when they were at the last hearing, they all said, well, we just couldn't see this coming. And if you look at the Bear Stearns story today, they say, oh my God, no one could have anticipated this. Well, if everybody had managed their own balance sheet, if everybody had looked at downside risk and everyone kept adequate liquidity, you don't get a crisis. So I don't think it's fair to say, gee, no one could have anticipated this. I think it is fair to say, look, how did you run this business and what risks did you incur and what was plan B? Especially with Bear Stearns, what was plan B when things went bad?
Real quickly, Doug, I want to get your opinion on this. Harvey Pitt, we're going to have in the next hour, is saying that, look, these panel hearings have been nothing more but dueling sound bites. I haven't learned anything that's going to help me with regulation. What's your response to that?
The hearings are not the entire investigation. I mean, when you get right down to it, the hearings have people chosen to exemplify practices that went on throughout the crisis, and we have a lot of other ways to learn.
Okay. All right, Doug. Thanks so much for joining us.